Chapter 131. When Ning Xuelua saw him, she immediately put on a shy expression. It's all your fault. You made me so tired. You were the one who wanted to provoke me. Su Yan looked helpless. Then he lifted the plastic bag in his hand. I bought some chicken porridge for you so that you won't complain about being tired all the time. You're so annoying. The second scene followed right after the first one. It was a fight scene in the bamboo forest. Shangguaningrong saw that Meng Chang'e had turned into a demon and wouldn't listen to anything. After a brief hesitation, she decided to kill her on the spot to prevent future trouble. After more than 2 hours of guidance from the martial arts director, the two finally learned enough. The director was going to find them a martial arts double. But Ningxi was good at martial arts and had even been a stunt double for others before. She definitely didn't need it. And Ning Xuelua also said that she wanted to do it herself. Guo Qixing naturally wanted a better movie effect, so he agreed. A professional master helped the two of them set up the suppressive force. After checking several times to make sure that nothing went wrong, the shooting began. Meng Chang'e is dead. Shangguaningrong closed her eyes and said the words with heartache and pity. Standing in front of her was only a beautiful and dangerous shell, a weapon that would destroy the world. The next second, a murderous look flashed in Shangguaningrong's eyes. At the same time, she suddenly pulled out the long sword from her waist and attacked Meng Chang'e. Meng Chang'e seemed to have expected her to do this. He stood there calmly until the sword was close to the tip of his nose. Only then did he suddenly stretch out his arms, the tips of his feet scraping the ground as he glided backwards like a bird, dodging Shangguaningrong's attack. Shangguaningrong sneered and attacked again. Meng Chang'e dodged unhurriedly like a cat playing with a mouse. Finally, he pulled out the soft sword from the waist of the red chiffon dress and fought back fiercely. After a dozen moves, Shangguaningrong gradually fell into a disadvantage and was almost knocked down from the branch by Meng Chang'e several times. Even though Shangguaningrong was very good at martial arts, she was like a child in front of Meng Chang'e, who had killed thousands of soldiers. Shangguaningrong thought too highly of herself and thought that Meng Chang'e's skills would definitely deteriorate after staying in the palace for a long time. Who knew that when they fought, she was completely no match for him. Unfortunately, it was too late for her to realize that she had underestimated him. In the end, Meng Chang'e finally had enough. With a cold look in his eyes, he thrust his sword towards Shangguaningrong's chest. Puchi. It was the sound of a sharp weapon entering flesh. Shangguaningrong clutched her chest with a pained expression and fell from the bamboo sea like a kite with a broken string. Next, there would be a close-up of Meng Chang'e's expression. Guo Qixing was watching Ningxi's performance attentively, but he found that Ningxi's expression was not right. Ning Xuelua is injured. Save them. Hurry. Ningxi, who was still in the air by the steel wire, suddenly shouted. After being stunned for a moment, the staff finally realized that it was not a script. Ning Xuelua was really injured. Chaos ensued. Everyone surrounded Ning Xuelua. After being put down, Ningxi quickly pressed down on Ning Xuelua's bleeding wound. Call an ambulance. As soon as she finished speaking, her body was suddenly knocked away by someone. Su Yan ran over in shock and hugged Ning Xuelua tightly in his arms. Xuelua, are you okay? Brother Yan, I'm in pain. Don't be afraid, I'm here. You'll be fine. You'll definitely be fine. Chapter 132. Ningxi was speechless. Damn it, I was massaging her just fine. But you suddenly pushed me away, and then looked at her with a pained expression as she bled out. Are you crazy? Are you addicted to acting in melodramatic dramas? If it weren't for the inappropriate occasion, Ningxi would have cursed him with her hands on her hips. What's going on? Guo Qixing rushed over angrily. Ningxi pinched her eyebrows. I didn't feel right until I stabbed her in. The sword didn't retract. It was a spring sword that would retract when it encountered resistance. But she hadn't expected such an accident to happen. Guo Qixing was furious. Where's the prop master? Come here. I told you to check the props carefully, and that there can't be any accidents. How did you do it? The prop master stumbled over, sweating profusely. Director Guo, it was fine when I checked it. There can't be any problems. Guo Wuxia threw the script at his face and roared. Then tell me what's going on now. Problems kept happening to the crew, and his patience was really reaching its limit. At this moment, Wang Taihe suddenly asked, Then who was the last person to touch this sword? Should be Ningxi. I gave the sword to her after checking it, and she has been practicing with it. It's my fault. I didn't check it again after we started filming. The prop master apologized repeatedly. Hearing this, Ningxi's pupils contracted. If she still didn't understand what had happened, she wouldn't be able to continue working. At this moment, everyone had different expressions on their faces. Guo Qixing glared at the prop master, and then at Ningxi. Suppressing his anger, he said, We'll talk about this later. Hurry up and send her to the hospital. And seal off the scene. Don't let the news get out. The First People's Hospital of B City. Su Yan was treating Ning Xuela's wound, while Ningxi was standing in the corridor outside the ward, leaning against the cold wall. Her brain was working fast. Ning Xuelua was indeed the founder of the Little White Flower. Even the trick of injuring herself to gain the confidence of others was very powerful. Wasn't she afraid that she would stab her to death? It was a pity that she had stopped the moment she realized something was wrong. Ning Xuelua's wound wasn't deep, and it was just a superficial wound. But the follow-up problems caused by this incident were too troublesome. Her top priority was to find a way to clear herself of suspicion. Ningxi was in deep thought when she suddenly heard a rush of footsteps. Just as she raised her head, she heard a slap and felt a burning pain on her face. Bastard! How could you do such a thing to Xueluo? If you have any grievances, come at me. I was the one who wanted to keep her in the Ning family. I was the one who was willing to spoil her. What did Xueluo do wrong? The person who came screamed at her hysterically, his eyes as though he was looking at an enemy with a blood feud. Ningxi wiped the trace of blood from the corner of her mouth, slowly raised her head, motionlessly looking at the luxurious, noble and elegant lady in front of her, her mother. Behind Zhuanglingyu is her father Ning Yahua. His eyes are also filled with disgust. If anything happens to Xueluo, I won't forgive you. The two people in front of her, one is her biological mother, and the other is her biological father. From the beginning to the end, they didn't ask a single word, and just scolded and threatened her. Ningxi has thousands of vicious words that can make them foam at the mouth. But at this moment, she seems to be drained of all her energy. She doesn't want to say a single word, and just stared at the two of them coldly. Chapter 133. Evil Creature. What's with that look? Ning Yahua was furious. He was about to lose his temper when the door was pushed open from the inside. Ning Yahua and Zhuanglingyu immediately forgot about Ningxi and rushed over. Su Yan, how is Xueluo? She's fine for the time being. You can go in and see her. Su Yan answered tiredly, and looked at Ningxi whose face was red and swollen. Zhuanglingyu immediately threw herself in front of Ningxue's bed, and looked her up and down. Mom sweetheart, how are you? Does it still hurt? How do you feel? Ningxue smiled weakly. Mom, I'm fine now. The doctor said it's just a superficial wound. Zhuanglingyu touched her hair lovingly. You're a girl. How can you say you're fine with such a big scar? If the sword had been deeper, you would have lost your life. That wretched girl. How could she be so cruel? You should at least call her sister. Sister. Ningxue looked sad and then she forced herself to say, Dad, Mom, don't blame her. It's not her fault. It's the prop that went wrong. Ning Yahua snorted. Silly child, why are you so silly? How could there be a problem with the prop? He then shouted at Ningxi, who was at the door. Beast, what are you waiting for? Get your ass in here and apologize to Xueluo. Ningxi's indifferent expression was like a thick and indestructible mask. I have nothing to apologize to her for. If you want me to apologize, show me the evidence. If you have the evidence, I can even give my life to her. Ning Yahua pointed at her with a trembling finger. You're still so stubborn. I'm giving you face by not investigating it. You won't repent until you see the coffin, right? Do you really want to embarrass me? In Ning Yahua's eyes, his face was always the most important thing. Ningxi sneered. If I really wanted to take revenge on her, you should be looking at her dead body now. Would I still have the chance to pretend to be a father and daughter? Ning Yahua slammed the table. Don't talk nonsense with me. Ningxi, are you going to apologize or not? If you admit your mistake, apologize, and then leave the entertainment industry, I can pretend that this never happened. But if you insist on going your own way, thank you, but I choose to be stubborn. Ningxi snorted, waved her hand, and left without looking back. Zhuang Lingyu's face was full of disbelief. Look at what she looks like. I can't believe I gave birth to such a bastard. Ning Yahua was so angry that he spun in circles. Evil creature. Evil creature. How infuriating. Ning Xuelua said anxiously, Dad, forget it. I'm fine now. Don't be mad at my sister. Don't let it affect your health. I already let her go last time, but she actually did such a thing. This time she hurt you. Maybe next time, she will really kill you. I can't let this matter go. But Dad. Alright, you don't have to worry about this. I will handle it. That's right. Let your dad handle it. Take care of yourself. Your dad will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. Ning Xuelua's eyes were red. She suppressed her grievance and looked very touched. Thank you, Mom, Dad. You really don't have to do this. I'm fine. Su Yan, who had been silent since just now, patted her on the shoulder. Xuelua, you're too kind. Ningxi has gone too far this time. Uncle is right. You can't let her do as she pleases. Chapter 134. When Ningxi walked out of the hospital, it was already late at night. There were no stars or moon in the sky, and there were only sporadic cars and pedestrians on the street. She admitted that Ning Xuelua's methods were very clumsy and unskilled, but she still succeeded. She always used the things that she cared about the most to hit her. For example, Su Yan, her parents, sometimes she even deeply doubted herself. Was it all her own fault? Was it because she was too terrible, too unbearable? That was why they all hated her, despised her, and abandoned her. She even wondered if there was any point in her struggling until now. Even if one day she achieved her goal and got everything, no one in the world would care. She was still alone. Ningxi was in a daze, walking aimlessly on the side of the road. She didn't notice that a black car without a license plate was following her stealthily. When she walked to a place with no one nearby, two people quickly got out of the car. One covered her mouth and nose with a wet towel from behind, and the other tied her up with a rope and dragged her into the car. The whole process took less than 5 seconds. When Ningxi realized it, she had lost her strength under the effect of the drug. Her body was also tightly tied up, and there was no room for resistance. Ningxi's pale lips showed a bitter smile. She had been framed and kidnapped. This birthday of hers was really fulfilling. The car drove steadily for a long time. Ningxi's eyes were covered with a black cloth. She didn't know where the car was going, and she didn't know who the other party was. Ning Xuelua's people? It didn't seem like it. Ning Xuelua had won today, so there was no need for her to do anything unnecessary. Then who could it be? Who did she offend recently? Just when Ningxi was puzzled, she heard the voice of one of the men in front of her. Hello, Mr. Zhu. Yes, we have taken care of her. We are on the way. Yes, don't worry. We will deliver it to you on time. This girl is so real. Both of us are attracted to her. Ha ha ha, how would we dare? We will definitely deliver it to you in one piece. Ningxi was horrified. Mr. Zhu? She suddenly remembered that she went to the wrong room at the Pearl Hotel last night. Could this Mr. Zhu be Zhu Xiangqing? Could it be that he didn't succeed that day and was unwilling to give up? So he sent someone to kidnap her? The more Ningxi thought about it, the more likely it was. She cursed silently. When she was about to find a way to escape, the effect of the helpless hypnosis became stronger and stronger. Her consciousness became more and more blurred, and soon she completely fell into darkness. When Ningxi regained some consciousness, she found that she was still blindfolded. She could hear two women talking in the room. She was in a daze and could not hear what they were talking about. She could only feel them taking off all her clothes quickly and changing her into a thin nightgown. Then they sprinkled something that looked like flower petals on her body. The more Ningxi thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. With Zhu Xiangqing's lustful personality, if he really wanted a woman, how could he be so patient? He would have tied her up and done it right away. Now he was helping her change her clothes and scattering flower petals. She could even smell the perfume they sprayed on her. Damn fat pig. Old pervert. If you want to kill me, just do it. What are you doing? Chapter 135. Zhu Xiangqing heard that Lu Tingxiao would be attending a business cocktail party tonight. He had rushed over early and made several preparations. The result was just as he had expected. Lu Tingxiao was unmoved by force or persuasion. He had painstakingly gotten his hands on a priceless antique painting, but Lu Tingxiao did not even look at it. Instead, he gave it to Zhu Xiangqing with a cute little girl. Lu Tingxiao looked at him, as if he was looking at a daylily. Just as Zhu Xiangqing was feeling anxious, the phone he had been waiting for finally rang. Hey, why are you calling so late? Are you guys done? Yes, we're already on our way. Hurry up. You have to send her over in 10 minutes. Room 808, don't get it wrong. Don't worry, we'll definitely send her over on time. TSK, Director Zhu, the girl you found is a real one. Both of us are moved by her. If you two dare touch her, don't even think about getting the rest of the money. I have great use for this woman. She can't be missing a single hair. Not far away, Lu Tingxiao, who was sitting on a high stool, looked down at the time on his watch. He straightened his cuffs and stood up, looking like he was about to leave. At this moment, a man abruptly emerged from the swimming pool. With a flick of his hair, a cool splash was created. He had healthy and attractive wheat-colored skin, 6 beautiful abdominal muscles above his belly button, and mermaid lines below that would make countless men envious and want to have them. The man raised his arrogant and handsome face, his wet hand grabbing Lu Tingxiao's calf as he was about to leave. He said in a displeased tone, Hey Lu Tingxiao, I'm the one who started the party tonight. Can't you give me some face? You're leaving after only half an hour? Moreover, you didn't even drink a sip of wine when you came to the banquet. There are so many good wines and beauties here, but none of them can make you stay longer? Let go. Lu Tingxiao frowned. He looked like he was going to crush Zhu Xiangqing's bones in the next second. At this moment, Lu Jingli walked over from behind with a glass of wine in his hand. He said with a smile, Brother Tian, can't you see that my brother's mind isn't here tonight? He's already giving you face by staying here for half an hour. Ling Tian lay on the edge of the pool, with a sloppy smile on his face. If his mind isn't with me, then whose mind is with him? He doesn't have a woman. Lu Jingli looked as if his eyes were going to pop out of their sockets as he snorted. Who said there isn't? There will be one soon. What? This is too much. As expected, Ling Tian was shocked. He jumped out of the swimming pool with a splash. His face was full of anger for being betrayed. You said that brothers will walk together for life. Whoever gets a girlfriend first is a dog. Lu Tingxiao glanced at him with a straight face. I don't remember promising you something so boring. Lu Jingli couldn't help but complain. Brother Tian, you're all alone, so you can do whatever you want. My brother has a son, so he has the responsibility of finding a mother for the child. Who is that woman? Ling Tian frowned and asked. Lu Tingxiao glanced at his watch again. His expression was already extremely impatient. He directly strode forward, completely ignoring him. Fuck. How dare you ignore me? As expected, once you have a woman, you lose your humanity. Ling Tian cursed from behind. After Lu Tingxiao left, Lu Jingli followed. Compared to the boring cocktail party, he was more interested in seeing how his brother flirted with girls. Brother, you're in such a hurry to go back. Are you going to celebrate sister-in-law's birthday? Quick, tell me, what surprise did you prepare? I'll give you some information. Lu Jingli was chattering away behind Lu Tingxiao when a fat ball suddenly rushed out from the side. Boss Lu, second young master. The person was sweating profusely. It seemed like he had caught up in a hurry. Lu Jingli raised his eyebrows slightly. Yo, Director Zhu. What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? I am looking for Boss Lu. Zhu Xiangqing looked at Lu Tingxiao with a flattering expression. He handed over a thin gilded room card with both hands. Boss Lu, this is a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it. His meaning was obvious. He had prepared a woman in the room for Lu Tingxiao. Chapter 136. Lu Tingxiao couldn't be bothered to deal with anyone at the moment. In order to avoid wasting time, he took the room card, and continued to stride forward. Zhu Xiangqing was relieved to see him accept it, but he was worried about whether he would go or not. Lu Jingli followed behind him with a dubious expression. Wow. Brother, you're so lucky. Zhu Xiangqing is really desperate this time. He will definitely make a big move. So the woman he found for you must not be ordinary. Brother, do you want it? Well, you already have a sister-in-law. You won't even look at her. Then give me your room card, just give it to me. I'm very curious what kind of celestial immortal Zhu Xiangqing has found. Lu Tingxiao's fingertips moved slightly, and the room card flew straight to Lu Jingli in the next second. Lu Jingli caught it accurately with 2 fingers, and his face was full of joy. Then I'm going, yo, 808, and it's a presidential suite. Lu Jingli took the room card, hummed a song, and walked happily to the guest room area at the back. The elevator went straight to the top floor. Lu Jingli put one hand in his pocket and walked straight to the room at the end of the corridor. When he reached the door, he took out the room card and opened the door with a ding. Before opening the door, Lu Jingli thought that he was just curious to see what would happen. What if the woman inside fell in love with him and refused to let him go? Although he didn't want to marry, he was a serious person and only accepted serious relationships. Creak. The door was finally pushed open. After opening the door, he saw a kg-sized bed sprinkled with red rose petals. A woman was lying in the middle of the bed. Between the petals, he could vaguely see that she was wearing an extremely thin nightgown and a pair of white and straight legs. Just this pair of beautiful legs was enough to make a man's imagination run wild. Zhu Xiangqing really put in a lot of effort this time. Lu Jingli continued to take 2 steps in as he thought about it. Then he saw the woman's face. Although his eyes were covered with a piece of white lace cloth, he still recognized who the woman on the bed was at a glance. Ow! Lu Jingli jumped up in fright, as if he had seen a ferocious beast, and his body hit the door with a loud sound. Then, he slammed the door and ran downstairs like a gust of wind. He ran all the way to the garage door and saw Lu Tingxiao's car driving out, so he rushed over to block his way. After the ear-piercing screech of the brakes, Lu Tingxiao stopped the car with an ugly expression on his face. Lu Jingli banged on the car window, and before Lu Tingxiao could scold him, he pulled him out of the car and urged him. Brother, come with me. What is it? It's urgent. It was an extremely urgent matter. Come with me and you'll know. There's only one thing that matters to me now. I know you're only thinking about sister-in-law now. This is also related to sister-in-law. Therefore, Lu Tingxiao immediately followed her. Just like that, the two hurried back to the presidential suite 808. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the door in front of him, his face as cold as frost. His eyes signaled for Lu Jingli to give him an explanation. Why did he suddenly go crazy and bring him here? Lu Jingli wiped his face and opened the electronic lock with a beep. Go in and see for yourself. Lu Tingxiao's expression changed slightly when he heard that, and he reacted almost immediately. Could it be? Chapter 137. The next second, Lu Tingxiao stretched out his arm and quickly pushed the door open. Then he froze on the spot with just one look. The air quickly filled with a frightening chill. The man's gaze was like a blade as he shot towards Lu Jingli. Did you see? Lu Jingli was so frightened that he leaned against the side of the door and said weakly, How would I know that she's sister-in-law if I didn't see? Don't tell me you're jealous too? She's wearing clothes and has petals covering her, so I can't see anything. Besides, if I didn't discover that it was her out of curiosity, who knows what would have happened to her tonight? No matter what, my merits outweigh my faults, okay? Other than my precious Xiao Bao. Where else can you find such a great assistant like me? Lu Tingxiao, scram. Scum. Thank you for your kindness. Lu Jingli, who had escaped death, immediately scrammed. It was said that curiosity killed the cat. But he still couldn't change his bad habit, even after escaping death 10,000 times. After Lu Jingli left, Lu Tingxiao immediately closed the door. Then he stood 10 steps away from the bed, his mind blank. The pure white bed, the bright red petals, the porcelain-like skin half-covered. The girl's eyelashes gently trembled under the lace cloth. The thin layer of cloth that was already soaked in sweat clung tightly to her body, and her jade-like toes curled up cutely due to extreme fear and nervousness. This scene, for Lu Tingxiao, who had endured for a long time, was simply a torture. He felt his throat getting drier and drier, and he almost couldn't breathe, so he stretched out his well-defined fingers and roughly pulled his tie. Probably because of the loud movement, the girl on the bed immediately began to tremble. She tried to move slightly away from the bed, but she seemed to have been drugged. She had no strength left in her body. After a long time of effort, she could only move less than 2 centimeters. Instead, she was so tired that she was gasping for breath. Her chest was heaving up and down violently, and her sweat had wet the hair on her temples. Such a scene was like a drop of water splashing into boiling oil. Lu Tingxiao, as if he was bewitched, walked towards the bed uncontrollably until he stood on the edge of the bed. The girl keenly sensed that someone was beside the bed. Her teeth bit so hard that they almost broke her lips, and she struggled even harder to leave. Lu Tingxiao was in a daze as he slowly reached out to the girl. His rough fingertips finally touched the skin that he had been longing for. That fiery heat almost burned his entire body to ashes along his fingers. However, in the next second, he felt a sharp pain in his fingertips. It was the girl who bit his finger hard. Soon, a trace of bright red blood seeped out of his finger. Looking at the girl's red lips sucking on his finger, even the pain turned into pleasure. Lu Tingxiao felt like he was going crazy. Even the pain didn't make him sober. However, in this instant, the girl's sudden loosening of her bite, as well as the deep despair on his face, was like a torrential downpour pouring down on his head, making him completely sober. Damn it! What the hell is he doing? He knew how scared she was right now. She clearly knew that every minute and second in the darkness was torture and suffering for her. Lu Tingxiao quickly reached out and untied the lace cloth on her eyes. The girl's eyelashes trembled violently. Then, they slowly opened up, like a slow-motion replay of a beauty who had woken up after sleeping for 1,000 years. Chapter 138. The next second, the girl opened her eyes completely. The moment the man's figure was reflected in her clear and despairing eyes, she was first dazed, then quickly filled with mist, turning into large teardrops that rolled down her eyes, one after another, as if there was no end to them. Ningxi. Lu Tingxiao was completely flustered by the girl's tears. What's wrong? What's wrong? I'm sorry I'm late. Don't cry. I'll take you to the hospital. Don't cry, okay? His heart almost stopped beating. Ningxi's eyes were red, and she couldn't stop her tears from flowing. She stretched out her hands, but they fell down when she raised them halfway. Do you want to get up? Lu Tingxiao immediately leaned over and helped her sit up. Just as he was about to help her get off the bed, the girl suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her head in his shoulder. Her body trembled as she cried. Her tears soon drenched his clothes and flowed down his neck. Lu Tingxiao felt as if a knife was twisting his heart. He stretched out his broad palm and patted her back gently as if touching fragile glass. Don't be afraid. It's all right. It's all right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because of extreme panic and fear, Ningxi cried for more than 10 minutes before she stopped, and then she hiccuped again and again. Lu Tingxiao patiently helped her calm down. Fearing that he would disturb her, his body was stiff, and he didn't dare to move. After a long while, Ningxi finally calmed down. She said in a hoarse and helpless voice in his ear. Fortunately, it's you, she said. Fortunately, it's you. These 4 words heavily struck his heart, causing it to reverberate. He didn't know when it had happened, but his girl had started to trust him so much. Ningxi forced a bitter smile and said intermittently, Lu Tingxiao, you don't know how bad I've been today. Before I saw you, I had already doubted life and was almost desperate about this world. She thought she was indestructible and that nothing could defeat her. But when what happened that night 5 years ago was about to happen again, she couldn't bear it anymore and broke down. She had thought about it before. Even if Zhu Xiangqing didn't use it for himself, he must have given it to someone else. Birds of a feather flock together. Those who hung out with Zhu Xiangqing must be even more disgusting men. At this moment, she was incomparably glad that she had guessed wrongly. She hadn't expected that the person Zhu Xiangqing wanted to curry favor with was actually Lu Tingxiao. A murderous intent flashed across Lu Tingxiao's eyes. But when he spoke, his tone was extremely gentle. I'm sorry, I dragged you into this. That night, I wanted to help you out, but Zhu Xiangqing misunderstood. I didn't expect him to do such a thing. How can I blame you? You did it to help me. After saying that, Ningxi realized that she was still lying on his body. She quickly straightened up and said awkwardly, Sorry, I dirtied your clothes. The girl knelt there with a face full of tears. After losing the cover of the petals, the thin layer of clothing was like nothing, unable to block anything. Lu Tingxiao coughed lightly and averted his eyes. I'm fine. Ningxi had just straightened up when she swayed. Lu Tingxiao hurriedly held her. Are you alright? I'll take you to the hospital. Ningxi shook her head with a flushed face. It's useless to go to the hospital. Well, Lu Tingxiao, can I ask you for a favor? Chapter 139. What? Lu Tingxiao tensed up subconsciously. The blindfold. Can you help me cover my eyes again? Ningxi asked in a low voice. Astonishment flashed across Lu Tingxiao's face. Why? Ningxi said helplessly. Because what the eyes don't see, the heart doesn't grieve. Although Ningxi's words were inexplicable, Lu Tingxiao instantly understood. He coughed lightly, picked up the white lace cloth that was thrown on the ground, and gently covered her eyes with it, tying it up for her. The moment Lu Tingxiao approached, the flames in Ningxi's body suddenly jumped up. She hurriedly recited the words emptiness is color, color is emptiness in her mind, until he withdrew to a safe distance, and there was only darkness in front of her. The turmoil in her body calmed down a little. If it was a wretched and disgusting man like Zhu Xiangqing, it would have been fine. But it was Lu Tingxiao. For her, who was under the influence of aphrodisiac, Lu Tingxiao was simply a catalyst that could infinitely magnify the effect of the drug and produce a fatal chemical reaction. Is it okay? Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi nodded. There is one more thing I need to trouble you with. I have no strength at all. Can you help me to the bathroom? I'll be fine after a cold bath. Wait a minute. I'll help you turn on the water. Thank you. The sound of running water came from the bathroom, which could be heard clearly in the quiet room. Although she couldn't see anything, she felt very relieved this time. After a while, the sound of running water stopped and footsteps came to her ears. Can I go? Lu Tingxiao asked. I think so. Just give me a hand. Lu Tingxiao stretched out his arm to support her, and considerately kept a distance from her. Only his arm touched her. Her body finally immersed in the cold water. Ningxi let out a comfortable sigh. Well, Lu Tingxiao looked nervous. Then I'll go out first. Call me if you need anything. And don't stay in the water for too long. Be careful not to catch a cold. Okay. Lu Tingxiao turned to leave, as if he was fleeing in a hurry. After going out, Lu Tingxiao opened the door of the hotel room. Then a figure fell in because he lost his balance. Lu Jingli scrambled to his feet, patting the dust off his buttocks. At the same time, he looked around the room furtively. Ahem haha. I'm just worried about you guys. I'm just worried. I don't have any intention of gossiping. Lu Tingxiao looked as if he had already expected him to hide at the door. He said coldly, Go to the car and help me get the documents. Lu Jingli's jaw dropped. Brother, are you kidding me? You actually want to look at documents in this situation? Are you a man or not? Lu Tingxiao glared at him. Do you need me to prove it? No, there's no need. I'll go right now. Go now. His brother's way of proving himself was definitely a particularly manly beating. After bringing the documents up, Lu Jingli listened to the faint sound of water. He sighed and lamented. Why are you taking a cold bath? Why don't you go and be the antidote for her yourself? What a waste. What a waste. Lu Tingxiao. You can go now. Actually, I don't want to go. Actually, I want to stay with you every spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Lu Jingli sang as he walked away reluctantly. After returning to the room, Lu Tingxiao tried to ignore the blurred figure behind the frosted door of the bathroom, and forced himself to focus on the documents in his hand. Well, he was quite efficient. He read 2 pages in half an hour. Just then, Ningxi's hurried voice came from the bathroom. Lu Tingxiao. Chapter 140. Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao hurriedly dropped what he was holding and ran to the bathroom door. Ningxi, what's wrong? Lu Tingxiao. I'm here. Come in. Go in. Hurry up. Hurry up. Ah. What's wrong with you? Lu Tingxiao became more and more nervous, but he didn't dare to push the door open. My leg is cramping. Give me a hand. Ouch. Lu Tingxiao put his hand on his forehead, sighed with relief and helplessness, and hurriedly pushed the door open. Because it was cold water, there was no mist in it. When her clothes were completely wet, they were almost transparent. Lu Tingxiao's Adam's apple moved slightly. Although he was not drugged, the degree of suffering at the moment was probably no less than that of Ningxi. Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi's urging brought him back to his senses. Lu Tingxiao hurriedly walked over. Which leg? Right leg, right leg. Ningxi's face turned pale from the pain. Lu Tingxiao didn't care so much. He decisively held her ankle with one hand and covered her thigh with the other, stretching and massaging her. Can I? No. It's still cramping. Use more strength. How about now? Ah, it hurts. Be gentle. Can I do it now? Almost. In just a few minutes, Lu Tingxiao's whole body was drenched in sweat. Exhausted, he gently put her leg back. The next second, Lu Tingxiao suddenly noticed several glaring red bruises on her legs, and his face suddenly turned cold. What happened to you? Did Zhu Xiangqing do it? My body. Ningxi subconsciously touched a part of her thigh that was faintly aching. You mean here? I strangled them when I hung myself with a wire today. Lu Tingxiao's face relaxed, and then he frowned. I'll buy you medicine. Then he looked at her worriedly. You can't bathe anymore, or you'll get sick. Ningxi subconsciously shrank into the water and stretched out her fingers to show 10. 10 minutes, give me 10 more minutes. I was almost recovered, but you came in again. Lu Tingxiao. All right. Lu Tingxiao left the bathroom and opened the hotel room door again. As expected, Lu Jingli rolled in again. Lu Tingxiao. Lu Jingli. Lu Jingli got up within a second and bowed. I'm sorry, brother. I'll leave right away. Wait, help me buy some medicine. Lu Tingxiao stopped him. What medicine? Lu Jingli wagged his big tail with a dubious expression. Bruises or something like that. Lu Jingli's eyes lit up like light bulbs. Brother, you're finally showing your power? Lu Tingxiao stared at him coldly. Lu Jingli said, I'm sorry, I was wrong. If you wanted to show your power, how could it have been so short? I'll go and run the errands now. In less than 5 minutes, Lu Jingli had bought the medicine and ran up to him. He said shamelessly, Brother, why don't you just allow me to stand guard outside the door and run errands for you? Lu Tingxiao gave him a sidelong glance. If I see you a third time, the consequences would definitely be very serious. Lu Jingli could only sigh regretfully. And then he took out a small square box from his pocket. Brother, I bought this just now. It's definitely better than the ones given by the hotel. Are you sure you don't need it? Ow, Lu Jingli was kicked out. Chapter 141. After putting down the medicine, Lu Tingxiao was about to knock on the door to ask Ningxi if she was ready, when the bathroom door was pulled open from the inside. Ningxi tightly wrapped in a huge bath towel, hopping out like a caterpillar. Be careful. Lu Tingxiao was worried that she would fall because she couldn't see it, so he hurried forward to help her. Ningxi sighed and said earnestly, It's not me who should be careful. You should be careful, Lu Tingxiao. Careful of what? Lu Tingxiao was puzzled. Ningxi said matter-of-factly, Of course you should be careful of me. I soaked for a while and found that my strength was almost restored. But the flame buried in my body was like a dormant volcano that could erupt at any time. So in this case, you'd better stay away from me. If I go berserk and can't control myself, the consequences will be very serious. Even I am afraid of me when I go berserk. Let me tell you. Lu Tingxiao smiled and didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her exaggerated words. In fact, he was looking forward to the consequences. I've bought the medicine. Do you need my help? Lu Tingxiao asked. No, for the sake of your chastity, I'll do it myself. Ningxi said righteously. My chastity. The corner of Lu Tingxiao's mouth twitched. Ningxi blinked. Didn't you say that you would only accept sexual relations with marriage as the premise? It would be a sin if she broke his principles. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Lu Tingxiao pinched between his eyebrows. Was it too late for him to take back his words? Ningxi said hesitantly, "Well, I'm not wearing clothes." Lu Tingxiao nodded, handed the medicine to her and said, "I'll wait for you outside." "Okay. Oh, by the way, please help me to see if my clothes and bag are outside." "Okay." Lu Tingxiao went to the living room. After a while, he found a clothes basket in the corner. All Ningxi's things were in it. There was a flash of light in her bag. A call had come in on her phone, which she had turned on silent mode. Lu Tingxiao glanced at it casually. The next second, his pupils suddenly contracted. 2 letters were clearly flashing on the caller ID, YS. It turned out to be the person whose identity he couldn't find out. The phone did not hang up. The screen kept flashing. Lu Tingxiao stared at it for more than 10 seconds. Finally, his slender fingers picked up the phone and pressed the answer button. On the other end of the phone, there was the soft sound of pouring wine, followed by a hoarse male voice. "Hey sissy, did you receive the gift? Happy birthday." Lu Tingxiao remained silent. "Hello." About 5 seconds later, when Lu Tingxiao thought she would stop talking, the slightly charming voice rang again. "Oh, you're not Ningxi?" Lu Tingxiao remained silent. Then, the rhythmic sound of a wine glass gently knocking against some glassware came from the other end. Then, the man continued to speak with interest. "Then who are you? Let me guess, it must be a man. A man who is still with her at this time. A one-night stand? Or are they dating?" The man paused and chuckled. There was a dangerous malice in his tone. "Ha, if she's in a relationship, did she tell you that she's two-timing?" That's right, the other ship is me." What did he mean? Just when Lu Tingxiao was about to get more information, the phone suddenly went dark. It had run out of battery and turned off automatically. Chapter 142. They had always thought that YS was one of Ningxi's ex-boyfriends. But from what he had said on the phone, it seemed that they were still in a relationship. Otherwise, why would he use the word two-timing? Did Ningxi have a boyfriend, but she had never mentioned it? Thinking of this possibility, Lu Tingxiao's face darkened. But he quickly calmed down, for it was very likely that YS had said this deliberately to hurt his rival in love. "Lu Tingxiao, I'm done applying the medicine. Are my things here?" "Yes." Lu Tingxiao came back to his senses and took her things into the room. After Ningxi changed her clothes, Lu Tingxiao went back in. After changing into her own clothes, Ningxi felt much more at ease, and the atmosphere was not so strange. So she took off the blindfold. As soon as she took off the blindfold, she saw Lu Tingxiao looking at her with a complicated expression. She touched her face and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Lu Tingxiao sat down on the edge of the bed. "Ningxi, can you tell me about you? About me? What about me?" No matter what it is. Ningxi felt that Lu Tingxiao must have deliberately asked her to talk to divert her attention. So she thought for a moment and said, "Well, let me tell you about my hometown." Although it wasn't the answer he had expected, different paths led to the same goal, and it would eventually lead to that question. Moreover, this was the only time, and also the first time she had ever mentioned anything related to herself in front of him. So Lu Tingxiao nodded. "Okay. Lu Tingxiao, there is a small town called Spring Breeze Town on the outskirts of Sea City. Do you know about it?" "Well, I bet you don't know about that small place." "Yes, the scenery is nice. Did Heroes with Gone with the Wind shoot there?" Ningxi was excited. Yes. So you know about it too. There was a scene where Heroes with Gone with the Wind and Rain roll in the wheat field. It was filmed in our town. A roll in the wheat field. Why did she mention it at this time? She had talked so much, but she had forgotten about rolling in the sheets. Okay. Ningxi hurriedly stopped this dangerous topic. Ahem. It's mainly because we haven't been developed by humans. So the environment is very good, and the air is very good. A few years ago, Lu Jingli also wanted to go fishing there, but I was busy at the time, so I didn't go, Lu Tingxiao said with a hint of regret. If he had gone, would he have met her earlier? In a sense, Lu Jingli was really the red line between him and Ningxi. Although he didn't go that time, he still met her later. It was also because Lu Jingli had brought Xiaobao to the bar that all these things happened. I'll reward him properly when I get back. If you have the chance, you must go there once. You definitely won't be disappointed. I can be your tour guide. Speaking of her hometown, Ningxi looked excited, but then her face slowly became gloomy. More than 20 years ago, the air was better. At that time, many rich people came here for vacation, and many even came here to have a baby, including Mrs. Ning Zhuanglingyu 24 years ago. At this point, Ningxi suddenly fell silent. Lu Tingxiao didn't rush her, but waited quietly for her. Ningxi took a deep breath and continued in a storytelling tone. Mrs. Ning was going to have a baby in Spring Breeze Town, and then go back to give birth. Unexpectedly, the baby was born early. Chapter 143. She couldn't make it back to the city in time, so she was sent to the only small hospital in Spring Breeze Town. That night, there was another pregnant woman who was also sent in. What happened next? Lu Tingxiao asked, although he had already guessed what happened next. Ningxi shrugged. Then it was too melodramatic. That small hospital was understaffed and had a messy system. The two girls were switched at the wrong place for 18 years. Do you know? Ning Xueluo's blood type was the same as mine, so no one found out about it. How did they find out about it? Ningxi turned her head and smiled at Lu Tingxiao. Well, I should thank my dissolute second uncle for that. Ning Yaobang. Lu Tingxiao had some impression of him, but he didn't know much about him. He only knew that he was a famous playboy in the capital. Yes, my second uncle was a playboy. After he got married, he still fooled around with women and killed many people. He had 1 son and 3 daughters. I don't know if there is a problem with the feng shui of the Ning family, but in this generation, Ning Yaohua and Ning Yaobang couldn't have a son no matter how hard they tried. So, my second uncle's illegitimate son became the only male heir of the Ning family. My second uncle was very proud at that time. He thought he could inherit the family property, but then he found out that the only male heir was not his biological son. He was cheated on by another woman, haha. And guess what? Lu Tingxiao loved the sparkle in her eyes. He thought for a while and said, then your grandfather tested the DNA of all the Ning family's descendants and found that Ning Xueluo was not a member of the Ning family, right? The Ning family was speechless. Can't we talk properly? I don't feel any sense of accomplishment by keeping you guessing. Lu Tingxiao chuckled. Sorry, I'll improve next time. Ningxi snorted and continued. Anyway, after some investigation, they found out that Ning Xueluo and I were switched at the wrong place in the hospital. And then I was taken back to the Ning family. Hearing her say these words in such a casual tone, Lu Tingxiao gently touched her head. They didn't treat you well? Ningxi didn't think it was a big deal, but when Lu Tingxiao patted her gently, she suddenly felt aggrieved. As expected, people would only feel aggrieved if someone felt sorry for them. No one would care who they were showing their grievances to. Looking at the girl's depressed look, Lu Tingxiao generously opened his arms. I can lend you my hug. Ningxi was taken aback and turned her head. No, you're tempting me to commit a crime. You know that? Lu Tingxiao didn't say anything and continued to look at her intently. What about your foster parents? Did they treat you well? Speaking of her adoptive parents, Ningxi cheered up a bit. My grandma values boys more than girls, and doesn't like me very much. When I was born, she almost threw me into the river and drowned me. Later, she lost me again, but my father picked me up. My mother is also very kind to me. I have a very sensible and obedient younger brother. Hearing that she had almost drowned, Lu Tingxiao's heart tightened. Also, when she mentioned her mother, there seemed to be something wrong with her expression, but he did not ask further. I really liked my original family. When they told me that I wasn't their biological child, I felt like the sky was going to collapse. But with the Ning family's power, I don't have a choice. If I had resisted with all my might, there might have been a glimmer of hope that I would not have left, but... Chapter 144. Ningxi sighed. But I fell in love with a man at that time, and I needed someone who could match him. Lu Tingxiao's eyes flickered. Was it Su Yan? Ningxi nodded and then said with a smile. Are you surprised that I got to know a young master like Su Yan with my status? In case Lu Tingxiao guessed it again, Ningxi didn't keep him guessing. She answered her own question. Because Su Yan had poor lungs when he was a child. He came here to recuperate and lived next door for 7 years. The first time we met, I happened to pass by and saw him having a heart attack, so I helped him carry him home. Later on, they gradually got to know each other. They met, got to know each other, fell in love, childhood sweethearts, and became carefree young lovers. But in the end, reality told me that it was not the story of Cinderella and the prince, but the story of Mr. Donghua and the wolf. Don't be sad. He doesn't deserve you. Lu Tingxiao comforted her. Ningxi didn't expect that she would talk about her ex-boyfriend with Lu Tingxiao. She scratched her head and said embarrassedly, "Let's talk about the Ning family. Ning Yaohua and Zhuang Lingyu couldn't bear to part with Ning Xuelua, who had been raised by them for 18 years. So they didn't return Ning Xuelua to the Tang family. Ning Xuelua was still the apple of the Ning family's eye. You can imagine what happened next. The gap of 18 years can't be made up overnight. In front of Ning Xuelua, who had been educated by a rich family for 18 years, I was just a country girl. I was so naive that I treated her as a friend at first. But she took advantage of my trust and tricked me into using lemonade to wash my hands. She gave me a fake dress to wear at the banquet. She used these little tricks to push me out of the Ning family and out of the social circle. Those people in the circle were already familiar with Ning Xuelua, and they were from the same country as her. On the surface, they treated me as a friend, but in private, they all laughed at me for being a country bumpkin. Even my biological parents hated my existence and felt that I was a stain on their family. Then came Su Yan. After Su Yan, the most important thing for a girl, her reputation and dignity, was trampled on. Ningxi slowly held her knees. Today there was a problem with the props. My sword accidentally hurt Ning Xuelua. In the hospital, my biological mother, slapped me without saying a word. My biological father also endlessly criticized and threatened me. Ningxi stared blankly at the dark night outside the window, her voice faintly discernible. At that time, I don't know why, but the nerves in my mind that had been tense for 5 years suddenly collapsed. I suddenly felt that everything was meaningless. I felt that I was a failure. Was it because I was so terrible that everyone hated me? I've worked so hard for so long, but is there any meaning in it? As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Tingxiao suddenly pulled her shoulders hard. Ningxi, look at me. No, everyone hates you. They're the worst. Understand? Ningxi's eyes reddened. Even if she always acted like she didn't care about anything, she was still just a little girl in her 20s. Lu Tingxiao pulled her into his arms and gently kissed the top of her head. Ningxi felt a slight weight on her head, but she didn't know what it was. Lu Tingxiao stared at her with a serious look. Ningxi, if you doubt yourself, then try to believe me. You're good. There's no one better than you in this world. Ningxi smiled through her tears. Of course I believe, Boss Lu. Lu Tingxiao breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, the despair in her eyes made him panic. After a moment of silence, Lu Tingxiao took the initiative to ask, Ningxi, can I ask you a question? Chapter 145. What? Ningxi tilted her head. Was it because he liked someone? So no matter what she did, he would think she was cute? Lu Tingxiao couldn't help rubbing her head again. Do you like diamonds? Huh. Ningxi hadn't expected him to ask such a strange question. Why do you ask? It's your birthday today. Xiaobao prepared a birthday present for you. I think it's a diamond. He was worried that you wouldn't like it. So I asked him. Lu Tingxiao said calmly. I see. Ningxi scratched her head and said, well, all women like diamonds, right? It's just my birthday. It's not nice for a kid to give me such an expensive gift. I don't want it. It's better to make some handicrafts. Lu Tingxiao pretended to say casually, it's not a valuable thing. The one you received on set the other day is a treasure. I'm afraid you won't like anything else after seeing that one. Ningxi face-bombed. You know about it too. Gossip travels 1,000 miles. Don't compare yourself with that weirdo. He's crazy. Is he your boyfriend? Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi almost choked on her own saliva. How could it be? Why would you have such a terrible idea? Because you were very intimate with him, Lu Tingxiao said, sounding a little sad. Ningxi had a headache. Oh my god. How was I intimate? Did I call him crazy to show affection? Lu Tingxiao nodded. For me, yes. You've always been very polite to me. You've never said anything harsh to me. Ningxi didn't know what to say. Was Demon King Lu secretly a jerk? How could he like her to be rude to him? Anyway, that guy has nothing to do with me now. He is crazy. He just likes to throw diamonds at people. I'll definitely hit him back when I see him someday. Ningxi said lightly, but there was a hint of fear in her eyes when she mentioned that guy. If not now, then in the past. Lu Tingxiao caught the key point. Ningxi coughed lightly. Well, maybe we dated before. If one day is counted. Inexplicably, Ningxi cared about Lu Tingxiao's thoughts about her. She scratched her head and said, Lu Tingxiao, do you think it's bad that I've dated so many men? Lu Tingxiao's face was solemn, as if he was answering a very important question. No, everyone has their own way of life, and they have their own unknown stories. Anyone who doesn't know the truth has no reason to stand on the moral high ground and criticize others. Ningxi's heart warmed and she chuckled. Lu Tingxiao, why do I feel like you're my diehard fan? No matter what I say or do, you always think I'm right? Diehard fan? Lu Tingxiao didn't quite understand what the term meant. Yes, it's the kind of irrational fans who support their idols regardless of right or wrong. Ningxi explained. Lu Tingxiao pondered for a moment and then muttered, that's very appropriate. Ningxi. Ningxi deliberately suppressed her emotions and remained silent. After a long while, she let out a long sigh. Lu Tingxiao, do you know? What? Do you know that you're even scarier than an aphrodisiac? Ningxi looked conflicted. Then she pulled at her collar with a pained expression. Chapter 146. Damn it. She had chatted for so long, but it was all for nothing. Why was this guy flirting with girls at the drop of a hat? The scariest thing was that he still looked innocent and didn't realize it at all. As the saying goes, no move is better than a move. No flirting is more flirting. This was the highest level of flirting. Pooey pooey pooey. Her mind was already in a mess and she didn't know what she was thinking about. Are you feeling unwell again? Lu Tingxiao immediately revealed a nervous expression. Ningxi rubbed her throbbing temples. It was not as simple as just discomfort. The frenzy that was set off again was even scarier than at the beginning. At this moment in her eyes, Lu Tingxiao was just like the male protagonist in a girl's anime, with his own sensational background music and romantic pink cherry blossom special effects. The rationality in her heart clashed violently with the bewitching pink glow. She felt like she was about to go berserk. Seeing that Ningxi had suddenly become short of breath and was sweating profusely, Lu Tingxiao's expression changed. Where are you feeling uncomfortable? Didn't you feel better just now? Is it that kind of discomfort, that, or something else? Lu Tingxiao said awkwardly as he recalled what she had said earlier. She had said that he was scarier than an aphrodisiac. That was probably the biggest compliment he had ever heard. Ningxi's eyes glowed red as she stared at him unblinkingly. Lu Tingxiao felt as though his body was on fire when she stared at him like that. Ningxi shook her head hard and threw herself onto the big bed behind her. She looked up at the ceiling helplessly. Sigh, I feel like I have a long night ahead. Lu Tingxiao, if I can't hold it in later, remember to knock me out. Lu Tingxiao pondered. Actually I can. Ningxi immediately interrupted him. Stop, stop, stop. Please, Mr. Boss, spare me. I really can't take your flirting anymore. Lu Tingxiao raised his brows. What are you thinking about? I mean, I can go out. Oh. Ningxi touched her nose awkwardly and stammered. But if I stay alone? I'll be bored. She was too embarrassed to say the word afraid. Lu Tingxiao understood her uneasiness and asked gently, Why don't we go home? Go home? Ningxi was stunned. The moment she heard these two words, she actually immediately thought of the Lu residence. Forget it, I look like this now. She didn't want to bring such filth there. Ningxi glanced at the documents and laptop beside Lu Tingxiao's bed and said, Just do your work. I'll meditate and regulate my breathing for a while, so that my internal energy won't run amok. Lu Tingxiao chuckled. Okay. In the quiet guest room, the rhythmic sound of fingers tapping on the keyboard could be heard, like the most gentle, soothing melody in the world. The girl's expression was peaceful as she slowly closed her eyes, feeling the steady and long breathing beside him. Lu Tingxiao stopped what he was doing and carefully covered her with the blanket. The girl smacked her lips and subconsciously grabbed his finger, muttering, "Lu Tingxiao." Lu Tingxiao's body trembled, and his expression changed greatly. She was calling his name. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Lu Tingxiao bent down and gently kissed the corner of the girl's lips. However, the gentleness between her brows was mixed with scattered dark clouds. Chapter 147. Ningxi, what should I do? I'm not as good as you think I am. Sometimes I'm really afraid that you'll look at me with such trusting eyes. If one day you find that I'm not as good as you think, will you leave me? At 5 o'clock in the morning, Lu Tingxiao was woken up by the doorbell. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Lu Jingli standing outside anxiously. "Brother, don't scold me. It's really urgent this time. If you don't go back, your Xiaobao will destroy the house. They can't contact you, and Ningxi can't get through to you, so they can only call me." At this time, Ningxi's sober voice came from behind. "What's wrong with Xiaobao? I'll go back right away." Within 10 seconds, she picked up the bag and helped Lu Tingxiao pack up his things. Let's go, let's go." The three of them quickly rushed back to the Lu's house. As soon as they entered the yard, Ningxi was dumbfounded. "What's going on? What are those?" Ningxi rubbed her eyes and looked in surprise at those humanoid objects flashing with silver metal light walking around. She felt that she had crossed into another dimension. Lu Jingli blinked. "Can't you see it? Robots." Ningxi almost went crazy. "Of course I can see it. But why are there so many robots?" Lu Jingli said with a headache. "This is one of Xiaobao's hobbies, but he hasn't taken them out for a long time. Now he's stimulated and released them all. It's like a scene of zombies besieging a city. There were dozens of those robots at the scene, and they were destroying everywhere at the moment. They dug the ground, ran wildly, hit trees, destroyed flowers, and one of them even lifted a little maid up." Accompanied by the exclamations of the servants, the scene was chaotic. Seeing that the little maid was about to fall from the robot's hands, Ningxi opened the door and rushed over to catch the girl before she fell to the ground. "Are you all right, Wanwan?" Wanwan patted her chest in shock, and then looked at Ningxi gratefully. "Thank you, Miss Xiaoxi. Miss Xiaoxi, you're finally back. Go and see young master." In the Lu's mansion, the servants, especially the maids, had a repulsive and vigilant attitude towards Ningxi, but they didn't dare to show it in front of Ningxi. Only Wanwan had a good impression of Ningxi because she often went to the crew to help Xiaobao deliver juice to Ningxi. After getting along with her for a long time, Wanwan felt that Ningxi was not arrogant because she was spoiled by young Master Xiao and young Master Xiao. She was modest and easy to talk to. Seeing Ningxi save the damsel in distress, Lu Tingxiao, who was sitting in the car, looked rather helpless. Lu Jingli stuck his head out of the window and wailed, "Little Cece, you can't do this to me. You stole my job. Roar. Help." As he spoke, one of his arms was clamped by one of the robots. "Brother, save me. Hurry up and turn these things off." Lu Jingli, who had just been clamoring to be a hero and save the damsel in distress, was now begging for help. Lu Tingxiao had a helpless expression on his face. "Xiaobao changed the program last time. Even if I could crack it, it would take me an hour. 1 hour. My hand will be crippled. Ah, it hurts. Where is Xiaobao now?" Ningxi asked hurriedly. "He should be in the computer room." Lu Tingxiao quickly got out of the car. "I'll take you there." "Okay." The two hurried in the direction of the computer room. Lu Jingli looked at the two's backs as they left. "Hurry up, you two." Chapter 148. After a while, Lu Tingxiao asked the butler to prepare an open car that looked like a sightseeing car, and quickly took her to a detached building behind the golf course. The shape of the house was very strange. It looked like it was made of glass, or some unknown metal. At first glance, one could tell that it was very high-tech and futuristic. The Lu's house was so big that Ningxi hadn't been to the whole place. It was the first time she had been here. There is a mechanical device at the bottom of the building which can rotate with the sun. The outer layer of the building is made of solar panels, and all the energy inside comes from solar energy. The butler and servants are all robots. Lu Tingxiao explained as a tour guide. So cool. Ningxi's face lit up, and she was as excited as a child. You can come here often if you like. I'll set up the access rights for you later. I thought you wouldn't be interested in these things, so I didn't bring you here, Lu Tingxiao said. No. I love these things. When I was a child, I always dreamed of being taken away by an alien spaceship. When I grew up, I even dreamed of falling in love with a robot. It's so romantic. Lu Tingxiao. Why didn't he give her the access rights? They walked to the door and saw a robot lying on the ground. Its eyes suddenly glowed red, and it seemed to be shooting at Ningxi and Lu Tingxiao. After shooting at Lu Tingxiao, the robot struggled and made a sizzling sound. Aster. This robot that kept calling out master intermittently, looking like it wanted to snitch but couldn't speak, was probably the butler of this computer room. Lu Tingxiao sighed and opened the door behind the robot. He didn't know what he did, but the robot's eyes darkened, and it stopped responding. Ningxi nervously went over and touched it. Why isn't it moving? Is it dead? Oh no, is it scrapped? It's okay. I'll fix it later. Ningxi breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, that's good. It's a pity. It's quite handsome. Lu Tingxiao. Just let it be scrapped. Lu Tingxiao directly entered the main building. Ningxi followed him and looked around anxiously. Where is Xiaobao? The hall was full of robots patrolling back and forth. When they found Ningxi and Lu Tingxiao, they immediately turned to face them. Then, they ignored Lu Tingxiao and pounced on Ningxi. What do they want to do? Why are they all coming for me? Ningxi was shocked. No matter how good she was, she couldn't beat the impregnable robot. Lu Tingxiao stretched his arms under her armpits and gently lifted her from one side to the other, dodging the mechanical claws of one of the robots. He said helplessly, because you don't have permission, they treat you as an intruder. What do we do now? Ningxi had been swung around by Lu Tingxiao several times. Come closer to me, Lu Tingxiao ordered. How close? Ningxi was at a loss. Xiaobao is in the control room on the top floor. We have two choices now. First, defeat them and force your way in. How are we supposed to fight so many of them? What about the second one? Just looking at the material made her hands hurt. She didn't want to fight with them. Secondly, Lu Tingxiao lowered his eyes and looked at her. I'll carry you up because they won't attack me. Ningxi blinked and reached out without hesitation. Hug. Chapter 149. Seeing the girl open her arms to him for the first time, Lu Tingxiao's cold eyes rippled. Here it comes again. Lu Tingxiao, hurry up. Ningxi had already taken the initiative to throw herself at him. Sure enough, as soon as she stuck to Lu Tingxiao, the robots didn't dare to touch her. Amazing. The soft and fragrant body suddenly threw itself at him. Lu Tingxiao was dazed for a moment before he reacted. He bent over and picked her up, then walked step by step towards the spiral staircase. This should be the first time he was so close to her when she was awake. He really hoped this road would never come to an end. If Lu Jingli knew what his brother was thinking at this moment. Well, as Lu Tingxiao and Ningxi went upstairs, the robots kept following them, keeping a distance between them. In order to keep her balance, Ningxi put her arms around the man's neck and breathed in his cold and pleasant scent. Looking at the large group of robots following them on the winding staircase behind them, she inexplicably felt that this scene was too romantic. But this pink bubble didn't last long. Just as they successfully reached the top floor and were about to open the silver-white door, the robots behind them suddenly made a clanking sound and then stretched out their iron arms toward them. As the arms stretched and retracted, a muzzle-like firing trajectory appeared from within. Ningxi turned pale with fright. Fuck. Are you serious? I thought they were just toys. Was it really good to let a 5-year-old play with such dangerous and lethal things? She didn't know how to complain about Lu Tingxiao's way of raising children. What should we do now? Ningxi was about to cry. They just came to find Xiaobao. Why did they have to go through so many difficulties? It was like playing a game. Lu Tingxiao held her shoulders and pushed her against the door behind her. Then he stood in front of her with one arm behind her. Ningxi was silent for 3 seconds. She swallowed and said faintly, "Boss, do you know that your posture is very good?" Baidong. This was obviously another word that Lu Tingxiao didn't understand. Ningxi held her forehead. Invisible flirting was the deadliest. At this moment, Ningxi suddenly saw a robot firing a bullet straight at Lu Tingxiao's back from the corner of her eye. "Lu Tingxiao, be careful." But it was too late. Lu Tingxiao protected her tightly, and his body let out a muffled groan. "Lu Tingxiao," Ningxi panicked. "I'm fine." Lu Tingxiao slowly raised his head. How could he be fine? "Lu Tingxiao, how are you? I'll take you there." Ugh. Ningxi suddenly felt nauseous. "Lu Tingxiao, you stink. What's so smelly?" Lu Tingxiao's face darkened as he took off his jacket. There was a sticky and disgusting thing on the back of his suit jacket. Ningxi covered her nose. Knowing that he was fine, she breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, she said speechlessly, "What is this? Is it shit?" Lu Tingxiao threw his coat downstairs and said expressionlessly, "Canned herring. It's said to be the smelliest canned food in the world." It was Lu Jingli's idea. The corners of Ningxi's mouth twitched. Second young master is really talented. It's not just smelly, it's a biological weapon. As soon as she finished speaking, the door behind her automatically opened to both sides. Chapter 150. Let's go. Lu Tingxiao took her hand and walked inside. His movement was very natural. Ningxi looked at their interlocked hands. Although she knew that Lu Tingxiao was just afraid that there would be another accident, she still had a strange feeling in her heart. The light in this main control room was very dim, with only dozens of operating computers glowing faintly. Ningxi followed Lu Tingxiao, and finally found Xiaobao next to the largest machine. She saw that under the huge machine entangled with countless wires, Xiaobao was sitting in a small custom-made chair for him, staring numbly at the screen with countless flashing programs. Next to him stood a small robot about the same size as him, pointing the gun in its hand straight in the direction of her and Lu Tingxiao. Looking at the cold and dull expression on Xiaobao's face, Ningxi felt that her heart seemed to be tightly strangled by an iron claw, so painful that she could hardly breathe. "Xiaobao," she called softly and tremblingly. The little guy stared at the screen, without the slightest response. Ningxi was really scared. She had only heard about it from Lu Tingchuan and the others, but she had never seen Xiaobao when he was autistic. "What should I do? It's all my fault." "Ningxi, don't blame yourself. It's all right. It's very common for him to be like this. Just call him a few more times." Lu Tingxiao comforted her. In fact, Lu Tingxiao said so because it was Ningxi. If it were someone else, it wouldn't be so simple. Ningxi tried to calm herself down and approached him cautiously step by step. The head of the little robot turned with her movements, but Xiaobao still didn't respond at all. Ningxi walked up to Xiaobao, then slowly squatted down and carefully took his little hand. "Xiaobao, Auntie is back. Sorry something happened to Auntie last night, so I couldn't come back." Ningxi couldn't explain to him what had happened, so she could only hang her head sadly. After an unknown period of time, a small fist suddenly appeared in her line of sight. Then, the little fist slowly opened, and there was a pink hairpin lying quietly in the soft palm. The hair clip was a heart made of about 100 small pink diamonds. It shone brightly under the cold light of the machine. "This is..." Ningxi immediately raised her head, surprised and delighted, although the little guy's face was still expressionless. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the hair clip in his son's palm and said, "This is Xiaobao's birthday present for you." "For me?" It was really a diamond. Ningxi was in a dilemma. Lu Tingxiao saw through her thoughts and promptly explained, "It's just an ordinary water diamond. It's not worth much." But Xiaobao personally glued the 99 water diamonds one by one. After hearing this, Ningxi was immediately moved. She didn't take the hairpin, but said to Xiaobao, "Can you help Auntie put it on?" Xiaobao somewhat sluggishly shifted his gaze to the hairpin. Then, he reached out his little hand and clumsily put the hairpin on her ear. Ningxi touched the clip happily, Does it look good? Xiaobao nodded, finally getting little Bao's response. Ningxi couldn't bear it any longer, and pulled the little fellow into her arms. At the same time, with a bang, the little robot next to him shot out a bunch of colorful streamers, and played a happy birthday song. Ningxi's eyes were wet, and she looked up at the colorful stripes flying all over the sky. Thank you, baby. This is the most romantic birthday I've ever had in my life. Chapter 151. Little Bun had meticulously prepared a birthday present and surprise for her. At the beginning, her heart was filled with expectations, but her expectations were slowly dashed, and then she panicked and scared when she couldn't contact her. How cruel must this be for him? Thinking of this, Ningxi felt as if a knife was twisting in her heart. She didn't want to let go of Xiaobao for even a moment. Lu Tingxiao didn't want to disturb them, but for the sake of their brotherhood, he reminded them. Ningxi, ask Xiaobao to call those robots back. Oh, all right. Ningxi just remembered that there was a group of bear robots in front of them tearing down the house. Lu Jingli's arm was still in their hands. Thus, he hurriedly said to the little bun, Baby, can you call them back? Xiaobao nodded, then faced the screen, his short fingers nimbly typing on the keyboard. Ningxi was amazed and exclaimed in admiration. Baby, why are you so amazing? I thought you only knew how to draw. It was really amazing. I've been a top student in recent years. I've been crazy about learning everything. But this is the only thing I can't learn no matter what. Programming, C++, it's my nightmare. But you're only 5 years old. He was so good at playing. He's a genius. Little Bun's expression was still wooden, but the light in his eyes was much brighter. However, Lu Tingxiao couldn't stand it anymore. He sighed and said, Ningxi, you shouldn't praise him now. Yes. Ningxi finally realized that Xiaobao had gotten into big trouble. She scratched her head awkwardly and looked at Lu Tingxiao. You're not asking me to teach him not to do this again, are you? He did what he promised me. He didn't go on a hunger strike, and he didn't throw things around. In the end, his methods became more advanced. What if I tell him not to do it this time, and he comes up with a more advanced method next time? Lu Tingxiao. This was indeed possible for Xiaobao. Ningxi spread out her hands. In conclusion, I think I'd better not talk about him. Actually, out of selfishness, she also didn't want to scold little Bun under such circumstances today. Her heart ached too much for him, and she couldn't even wait to dote on him. How could she bear to say anything harsh to him? Fortunately, Lu Tingxiao didn't force her. Basically, in front of Ningxi, his principles were just floating clouds. The three of them returned to the entrance of the house on an open-top sightseeing bus. Ningxi was surprised to see that the noisy robots were all standing neatly in 2 rows, as if they were welcoming them. The scene was very spectacular. The only thing that spoiled the mood was the wailing at the top of his lungs. Brother, why were you gone for so long? My fucking arm is dislocated. Is it worth it for you to howl like this even if your arm is dislocated? Ningxi rolled her eyes at him and jumped down. She grabbed his arm and pulled it up. Lu Jingli squealed like a pig being slaughtered. Ningxi patted his arm. Stop howling. It's done. Give it a try. Huh. Lu Jingli blinked his eyes and moved his arm. It was really healed. However, she was still worried and mumbled. You didn't connect me to the wrong channel, did you? Impossible. I'm very experienced. Ningxi was very confident. Lu Jingli looked suspicious. May I ask why you are so experienced in this kind of thing? Ningxi said. Because he used to fight with Jiang Mai a lot. His arm was dislocated several times, and it was me who put it back for him. Lu Jingli. Are you sure it's a fight, and not a one-sided beating? He was really worried about his brother's future. Would he be subjected to domestic violence in the future? Forget it. What was there to worry about? Even if he was raped, he would be willing to endure it. Chapter 152. Ever since Ningxi came back, Little Bun had completely turned on his pet mode. He followed her wherever she went, not leaving her side at all. In the living room downstairs, Lu Jingli also turned on his pet mode, following Lu Tingxiao wherever he went. Brother, dear brother. What have you been doing all night? Lu Tingxiao sat down on the sofa with a cup of coffee in his hand. Chatting. Lu Jingli choked and was as disappointed as a puppy who didn't get a bone. Well, forget it. How's the thing I asked you to do? Lu Tingxiao asked. Lu Jingli immediately switched to the serious mode and said seriously, it has started. Within a month, Zhu Xiangqing's Fengruwei real estate will be removed from the capital. What about Ningxi? Lu Jingli sorted out his thoughts and said, the crew blocked the news at that time, so I didn't know it in time. As for now, the person who set it up will not let the news continue to be blocked. Now it has spread on the internet. What's worse, the prop master testified in the interview that it was Ningxi who bribed him to tamper with the props. So it's not just a matter of public opinion. If Ning Xuelua files the case, Ningxi may be taken to the police for investigation. The hostility between Lu Tingxiao's eyebrows was overwhelming. What he was sitting on was not a sofa, but a throne made of skulls. He spat out each word as cold as ice. I'd like to see who dares. No. Sister-in-law has your support. No one can touch her. Lu Jingli hurried to appease him and then said positively, brother, don't worry. I've had people secretly put eavesdropping and monitoring devices in the prop master's house. During this time, he will definitely contact the person behind the scenes. We don't need to worry about not getting evidence. At that time, it's hard to say who will go to the police station. Lu Tingxiao seemed to be dissatisfied and knocked on the tea table with his fingers. Efficiency. Lu Jingli was not convinced and muttered, that's a good way. How is it inefficient? Lu Tingxiao took out a gun from the secret compartment under the TV cabinet and threw it to him. Lu Jingli's mouth twitched. Damn, that's too simple and crude. It's not skillful at all. As the two of them were talking, the sound of footsteps came from above. Lu Tingxiao put the gun back without batting an eyelid, then looked up at the person with a gentle gaze. Xiaobao is asleep? Yeah, I finally coaxed him to sleep, Ningxi answered and said anxiously. Well, Lu Tingxiao, I have to go out to deal with something urgent. I've left a note for Xiaobao, and my cell phone is fully charged. You can contact me at any time. I'll be back in 3 hours at most. I won't say any more. See you later. After that, he ran away like a gust of wind. Lu Jingli touched his chin. Brother, where is sister-in-law going in such a hurry? Lu Tingxiao looked at the direction in which the girl had left, then said to Lu Jingli, get someone to follow her. It was definitely not simple for Ningxi to suddenly leave at this time. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaobao wasn't suited to stay at home alone, he would definitely go by himself. Why are you still looking for someone? I'll go. Lu Jingli immediately accepted the task happily. Lu Jingli drove a low-key black car home, and barely managed to keep up with Ning, she who was riding a motorcycle. 20 minutes later, he stopped in front of the small apartment building where Ningxi used to live. He paid attention to the movements there, and reported the situation to Lu Tingxiao. Chapter 153. When Ningxi returned to the apartment, she immediately moved out an iron suitcase from the bottom of the wardrobe, and then carefully checked and wiped the things inside. Looking at the time on the cell phone, Ningxi put the things in her bag and hurried downstairs. Not far away, Lu Jingli reported to the person on the other end of the Bluetooth headset while driving. Ningxi went back to the apartment and came down in less than 5 minutes. Now she is heading for the suburbs of Shijiang Road. Half an hour later, Ningxi finally stopped. Lu Jingli looked around the dilapidated house and then looked surprised. Ah, isn't this the place where Zhang Chang, the prop master, lives? Why did Ningxi come here alone? Is she going to reason with him? She is too naive. Turn on the monitor. The man's cold voice came from the other end of the Bluetooth headset. Oh yes, I almost forgot. Lu Jingli hurriedly took the laptop from the back seat of the car. Brother, wait. I'll do a live broadcast on my cell phone. Before Lu Jingli finished speaking, he suddenly found that his computer couldn't be operated. His face suddenly darkened. Brother, you hacked my computer. I told you I'll do a live broadcast on my cell phone. Don't be so anxious. Zhang Chang's salary in the crew was okay, but because of his gambling habit, he not only had no savings, but also owed a lot of debts, so he lived in this suburban slum. Ningxi heard this when he was drinking and chatting with others on the crew. Dong dong dong. Ningxi knocked on the door 3 times. There was no movement inside. Ningxi continued to knock until there was a bang, followed by the sound of slippers rubbing against the ground. The rusty iron door was pulled open from the inside. Who the hell is it? You want to die so early in the morning? Zhang Chang suddenly changed his face when he saw it was Ningxi outside the door. Mr. Zhang, how have you been? Ningxi looked at him with a smile. Zhang Chang wanted to close the door directly, but he rolled his eyes and changed his mind. He said lazily, I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be the beauty Ning. Come in. As soon as Ningxi entered the room, she smelled a foul stench. The pungent smell of alcohol mixed with the smell of stinky socks and mold was as lethal as the canned herring in the morning. Feel free to sit. Zhang Chang lights a cigarette, and then his turbid eyes are glued to Ningxi's body, sweeping over every part of her body. Ningxi sat down on the only clean chair in the room and went straight to the point. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. Teacher Zhang, I don't think I need to tell you why I'm here. I need your statement. Please tell me everything truthfully. Ning Xuelhua directed and acted on her own. I didn't bribe you to frame her. Zhang Chang looked at her with a smile, as if he had seen through her. Little girl, did you turn on the recording? Are you trying to trick me? Hee, you're too inexperienced. I'm sorry, but what I told the reporters was the truth. Zhang Chang looked like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. And then a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Unless you can afford it. Ningxi narrowed her eyes. She had already expected this. After Zhang Chang got the money from Ning Xuelhua, he would definitely not run away, but continue to gamble. In the end, he would probably lose everything. And now he wanted to eat both ends. Chapter 154. What if I don't agree? Ningxi looked at him with a faint smile. Zhang Chang's eyes wandered between her breasts and buttocks. He touched his chin and said, I don't have money. I have a way. If Beauty Ning can sleep with me once, I can reveal some interesting things to you. He was clearly hinting that if she wanted a confession, she had to pay him or sleep with him. In fact, with Zhang Chang's cunning personality, even if she satisfied him, he would not give her a confession. Then she would lose both her money and herself. At the same time, in the car downstairs, Lu Jingli, who saw this scene on the monitor, nervously reminded his brother on the other end of the headset. Brother, take it easy. Don't get excited. Don't get excited. Be gentle to my little notebook. I have hundreds of gigabytes of treasures in my hard drive. Go upstairs now. The voice in the headset ordered. Yes, yes. I'll go right away. Seeing Zhang Chang approaching Ningxi step by step, Lu Jingli runs wildly with his laptop in his arms. At the same time, Zhang Chang walked to Ningxi's chair and put his arms on the armrest. His breathing became rapid. What do you think? Is this a good deal? Not only can you get what you want, but you can also have fun. Ningxi lowered her eyes, her expression hidden in the shadows. Her red lips overflowed with a sneer. The next second, Zhang Chang felt something cold and hard on his waist. He looked down, and his face instantly turned pale. It was a black muzzle pointing at him. You. Zhang Chang's first reaction was to run, but Ningxi's cold voice came from behind. Run. Let's see which is faster, you or my bullet. Zhang Chang was sweating profusely. He turned around stiffly and then laughed easily. Little girl, I was almost scared by you. You lied to me with a toy gun? Shoot. Shoot if you can. Come on, shoot here. Ningxi's fingers moved slightly. She put a silencer in the shape of a black tube on the muzzle and pressed the trigger. Puff! The bullet flew past Zhang Chang's arm and drew a dazzling spark on the ground. All of this happened in less than 3 seconds. Zhang Chang covered his burning arm and knelt on the ground. Sister! Big sis, calm down. This was a real gun. I'm not joking. Confession. Ningxi threw a recording pin over and looked at the time on the phone impatiently. Xiaobao was still sleeping at home. If he woke up early and didn't see her, he would definitely be worried again. She still had to rush back to accompany Xiaobao. I'll record it now. Zhang Chang scrambled to pick up the recording pen, and pressed the button to start recording. It's not Ningxi. Ningxi didn't bribe me. The one who gave me money to tamper with the sword was someone else. But I don't know who he is. I received an anonymous email. The other party asked me to do this, and directly deposited 100,000 yuan into my account, saying that he would give me another 100,000 yuan after the job is done. Zhang Chong said as he peeped at Ningxi carefully. The woman in front of him looked extremely impatient and gloomy. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her fingers stroked the barrel of the gun in a neurotic manner. She looked like a psychopathic homicidal maniac, which made one's hair stand on end. Chapter 155. Lu Jingli, who was about to rush in to save her, was stunned when he saw the 180-degree reversal of the situation on the monitor. You're alone. You actually brought a gun with you. Fuck. If I'm not mistaken, that gun is a Beretta 92F. Where did she get it? Lu Jingli's face was full of disbelief. Then, a sad thought came to his mind. His second attempt to save the damsel in distress had failed. Inside the house, Zhang Chong stared at the gun in Ningxi's hand, for fear that she would shoot without saying a word, leaving no room for reaction. It was too cruel. I'm telling the truth. Not a word of falsehood. Otherwise I'll be struck by lightning. Ningxi did not speak. He did not know whether she believed him or not. She spun the gun in her hand again and again. My dear lady, be careful not to misfire. Zhang Chong was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He quickly said, If you want me to falsely testify that it was that Ning Xuelua who ordered me to do it, I can. Unconditionally. I will satisfy all your conditions unconditionally. Whoever you say it is. False testimony? What she wanted was solid evidence. Ningxi tapped her chin with the gun and said, Give me the bank account and the email that the other party sent you. Okay. It's in my computer. I'll get it now. But the email is anonymous. And even the account is an anonymous foreign account. I don't think it's useful to give it to you. Zhang Chong took out a laptop from under the blanket and showed her the email and the details of the remittance. Ningxi glanced at it. After making sure there was no problem, she said, This computer is mine. Do you have any objections? Zhang Chong shook his head vigorously. No. Just take it, my dear lady. Take whatever you want. Ningxi sneered. He had gone from calling her big sister to my dear lady. This kind of rascal would not listen to reason with you. If you tried to negotiate with him, he would be insatiable. If you tried to play tricks, he would be even more cunning. The only way to deal with him was to use violence against violence. This was the first time she had used this gun since returning to the country. It was impossible for her not to be nervous. Fortunately, she had acting skills. As long as she thought she was acting, she could instantly calm down. He casually picked the role of a psychopathic murderer and acted it out. It seemed that the effect was not bad. Acting was her favorite career, and it was also her way of protecting herself. Then Grandaunt, is there anything else? Zhang Chong saw that she still didn't want to leave, and nervously swallowed his saliva. Ningxi looked at him thoughtfully. I'll think about it. About what? Of course I'm considering whether or not I should silence you. What if you tell others that I tortured you? Ningxi said matter-of-factly, and her expression looked very serious. Zhang Chong's legs softened, and he almost knelt down again. How is that possible? Even if you lend me 100 guts, I still wouldn't dare. What he said was true. His character was to bully the weak and fear the strong. This time, Ningxi had scared him enough. He had never thought that such a delicate little girl could have such a scary side. He didn't even dare to look into her gloomy eyes, for fear that he would have nightmares at night. Ningxi chuckled and patted his cheek with the gun. Don't worry. I won't silence you. I'll even give you money. Chapter 156. Zhang Chong's first reaction was to beg for mercy. I don't want it. Grandaunt, please spare me. I was just talking nonsense. I wouldn't dare to take your money. Who said I was going to give you money? Ningxi kicked him. Zhang Chong rolled up and said innocently, But didn't you just say? He was about to be driven crazy by this person's mood swings. Ningxi glanced at him coldly. Stay at home and wait for my news. As long as you behave, I'll give you a lot of money. Otherwise, huh? She still had to contact him? Hadn't he given her everything? Shouldn't they have nothing to do with each other? Why was he still being pestered? He didn't want money. He wanted his life more. Zhang Chang couldn't say anything, so he could only thank her and send her out. Downstairs, Ningxi put on her helmet, started the engine and drove straight to the Lu's house. When she arrived at the Lu's house, it was an hour earlier than her appointment with Lu Tingxiao. When she entered the living room, Lu Tingxiao was still sitting on the sofa in the same position as when she left. Ningxi didn't think much of it and immediately asked, Lu Tingxiao, I'm back. Is Xiaobao awake? No. Oh, that's good. I'll go up and see him. Wait. Lu Tingxiao suddenly stopped her. What's wrong? Ningxi felt that there was something wrong with Lu Tingxiao's tone. Where did you go? Lu Tingxiao's tone was calm, but it gave the illusion that there was an undercurrent in it. Ningxi subconsciously sensed the danger and hurriedly replied, I went to deal with some personal matters. It's all settled now. I'm going upstairs. She was about to slip away when an arm suddenly reached out. The next second, Ningxi was suddenly pulled by a strong force and fell onto the sofa. To be exact, she fell into Lu Tingxiao's arms. Ningxi was startled. What surprised her even more was, Lu Tingxiao. You, what are you doing? Where are your hands? Lu Tingxiao ignored her and continued to grope her body. Hey, I'm going to resist if you keep doing this. Don't blame me if I hurt you. Then do it. Ningxi almost broke down. Fuck. Lu Tingxiao, what are you trying to do? Are you sure that I can't do anything to you? Lu Tingxiao stared at her expressionlessly. Why can't you do it to me? Because yes. Why? If it was someone else, her first reaction would have been to beat them up. Just as Ningxi was racking her brains on how to answer this question, Lu Tingxiao's hand dangerously placed on an object behind her waist. Ningxi immediately wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The gun hidden behind her waist was instantly in Lu Tingxiao's hand. Lu Tingxiao directly threw the gun on the coffee table in front of him. His expression, which was usually incomparably gentle toward her, was now as cold as ice. The words he spat out were also like ice blades. Explain. Ningxi suddenly felt nervous, as if she had been caught cheating by the teacher on the spot. With a pale face, she twisted her fingers and tried to put on a relaxed expression. Haha, this is fake. A toy gun. I bought it for fun. Is that so? Does a toy gun need a silencer? Lu Tingxiao glanced at her, picked up the gun casually, and fired a shot at a palm-sized white jade vase placed in the opposite corner. Instantly the vase shattered. The calm expression on Ningxi's face was the same as that broken vase. It was also broken. Chapter 157. There was a dead silence in the air. After a long while, Ningxi swallowed her saliva with difficulty and changed the topic incoherently. Haha. Sir Boss, your marksmanship is godly. Amazing. You're such a spendthrift. That vase must be very expensive, right? Lu Tingxiao's eyes were cold. You don't have to say it if you don't want to. Ningxi hung her head dejectedly. But you said it as if you would break off with me if I didn't tell the truth. That's not sincere at all. Did she have a second choice except to tell the truth? Ningxi sighed and could only explain to him. Didn't I tell you that I accidentally hurt Ning Xuela because of a problem with the prop? Now the prop master said that I bribed him to tamper with the prop. Isn't he trying to push me to the edge? His words not only ruined my career, but also put me in jail. Lu Tingxiao stared at her. So? Ningxi coughed and stammered. So I forced him to tell the truth. Looking at her in different attitude, Lu Tingxiao's face darkened. Ningxi, do you know how dangerous it is for you to do this? You're a girl. Ningxi said sullenly. I know. But I had no other choice, didn't I? You don't know how shameless Zhang Chang is. He can only be dealt with in such a simple and violent way. I said that if you need help, you can come to me. You would rather choose such a dangerous way than ask me? Lu Tingxiao's eyes were full of disappointment. His eyes made her heart ache inexplicably. This was the first time that Lu Tingxiao had been so angry with her. Ningxi was anxious. No. Finally, she sighed with a headache. I'm just used to it. Used to solving everything by herself and not relying on anyone. The two fell into silence again. Ahem. But how did you know I had a gun? Ningxi suddenly thought of it and asked suspiciously. Smell. Lu Tingxiao answered coldly. Oh, I see. Is it the smell of gunpowder? I didn't expect that boss had such a keen sense of smell. Ha ha ha. Lu Tingxiao's expression was still as cold as ice, and it was at the level of 1,000 years. Flattery failed. Ningxi said helplessly. Lu Tingxiao, it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but you don't need to deal with such a trivial matter. It's like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. But there's something I really need your help with. You have to help me, you have to. I thought about it, and decided that you were the only one who could help me. Even if you don't help me, I will definitely rely on you. This time, although Lu Tingxiao's face was still cold, he finally looked her in the eye. Speak. Ningxi heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, It's like this. Although I got Zhang Chang's confession, as well as the email and remittance details sent by the other party, these pieces of evidence could only clear my name. They could not find the person behind it. If he let her off so easily, he would be letting her off too easily. So, I thought, is there any way to crack their account information and IP address? Little Bao is so powerful at such a young age. It must be because of your excellent genes, Sir Boss. So, Sir Boss, you must be even more powerful in this aspect. You must have a way, right? Chapter 158. Right. Ningxi put her hands together, her eyes shining with expectation. On the one hand, she wanted to please Lu Tingxiao, and on the other hand, she really needed help. Lu Tingxiao was silent for 3 seconds, and then finally said, Yes. Really? Do you really have a way? Ningxi almost jumped up with excitement. How long will it take? 1. Lu Tingxiao wanted to say an hour, but he changed his words. 1 night. So fast. Great. Ningxi was overjoyed, and hurriedly took out the laptop from her bag. This is the laptop I took from Zhang Chang. Do you need anything else? I'll prepare it for you. No need. Lu Tingxiao got up and went straight upstairs. Ningxi immediately followed after him. When they arrived at the study, Ningxi trotted to help Lu Tingxiao pull out the chair, put the notebook on the desk in front of Lu Tingxiao, and ran to pour a glass of water for him. Lu Tingxiao glanced at her, and then sat down in the chair. Lu Tingxiao took out his own laptop, and connected the 2 computers with a data cable. After browsing the evidence, she said, he clicked on an unknown software, and then entered a series of complex codes in the box on the screen. Ningxi curiously leaned on the table, and leaned closer to take a look. Naturally, she couldn't understand it at all. She was confused and felt that it was awesome. Just as Lu Tingxiao was tapping, he suddenly heard a soft breath. His fingers suddenly stopped, and his brows furrowed. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Ningxi immediately asked nervously. Lu Tingxiao's tone was slightly cold. Stay away from me. Being so close to her would hinder his concentration. Oh. Ningxi suddenly lowered her head like a frosted eggplant, and sadly moved to the sofa in the farthest corner of the room. Looking at the girl's pitiful look, Lu Tingxiao almost comforted her, but he finally held back. Holding a pillow in her arms, Ningxi quietly watched Lu Tingxiao's side profile as he worked seriously. It was said that a man was the most handsome when he was serious. For a moment, there was only the sound of keyboard tapping in the study. Ningxi sat there alone for a long time and finally couldn't help asking, Lu Tingxiao, can I ask you a question? Ask. Why didn't you ask me? Ask what? Ningxi clenched her fists. Ask about the gun. Aren't you going to ask me why I have a gun? Don't you think I'm different from what you imagine me to be? Don't you think I'm very scary? Lu Tingxiao. I don't think so. Ningxi. Oh, Lu Tingxiao didn't ask, but Ningxi felt guilty. He had always treated her as a friend, and helped her unreservedly. But she had been hiding everything. Therefore, even though Lu Tingxiao didn't ask, Ningxi still took the initiative to say, You know, the security in China isn't very good, and it's legal to carry a gun there. I learned how to use a gun when I was there. However, in China, this gun was indeed obtained through irregular channels. I don't know the specifics, but it was given to me by a friend. He was the one who taught me how to shoot. I use it as a last resort to defend myself. This is the only time I've used it since returning to China. Lu Tingxiao stopped what he was doing. Who is your friend? Chapter 159. Hearing this question, Ningxi looked a little embarrassed. She scratched her head and said, I mentioned it to you, the ex-boyfriend I dated for a day. It was that man again. Since they had only been together for a day, why did they have so many connections? Lu Tingxiao's expression suddenly became extremely fierce. Do you know that the delivery channel of this kind of gun is monopolized by 3 organizations? No matter which organization your friend belongs to, he is a key target of the higher-ups. Including that diamond, it's very likely that it's not from a legitimate source. Ningxi lowered her head and mumbled, I know. You know? Lu Tingxiao's face became even darker. She knew why she was with that kind of man. She knew his background, which meant she was in a more dangerous situation. Ningxi hurriedly explained, his background may be a bit dangerous. I'm sorry I can't explain his specific identity to you, but I'm sure he won't hurt me. As soon as she finished speaking, she found that Lu Tingxiao's face was extremely dark. At this moment, Ningxi felt like a naughty child who had been caught doing something wrong by her parents. She was so nervous that she didn't even dare to breathe heavily. The devil's aura, when he was angry, was too terrifying. After a long while, Lu Tingxiao finally said, Give me the gun. Ningxi's words to protect that man almost destroyed his sanity. Oh, Ningxi obediently handed the gun to him. What do you want? Lu Tingxiao took it without hesitation. I'm confiscating it. Ningxi immediately threw herself at him and wailed. Ah, no. This is my amulet. I promise I won't play with it. I won't let anyone find out. Lu Tingxiao glanced at her coldly, opened the drawer, took out another gun and handed it to her. Use this one from now on. Seeing the gun that Lu Tingxiao gave her, Ningxi's eyes immediately lit up. She couldn't tell what model it was, but she could tell it was not an ordinary gun. Can I take it apart? Ningxi asked cautiously. Looking at the girl's sparkling eyes, Lu Tingxiao nodded. After getting permission, Ningxi immediately dismantled the gun excitedly. After dismantling it, she looked at the internal structure in disbelief. P226? I've modified it to make it safer. Lu Tingxiao still didn't look too good, because Ningxi's knowledge of firearms, how to use a gun, and disassembly and assembly methods were obviously taught by that man. Ningxi touched the gun fondly, then glanced at him weakly. Well, it's dangerous to have a 92F, but you actually got a P226, isn't that? It was said that the 92F was the best gun in the world, but very few people knew that the P226 was the best. It was only because of its high price that it wasn't as popular as the 92F. Lu Tingxiao's face turned cold. You think I'm in danger? Ningxi shook her head like a rattle drum. No, no, no. How could this be? Boss, you're the best. You are my little angel. Are you tired? Are your shoulders sore? I'll pinch it for you. You can do it. After saying that, she ran behind him and massaged his shoulders with all her might. Listening to the girl's sweet and soft voice, although he knew she was deliberately coaxing him to please him, Lu Tingxiao immediately calmed down. But soon his expression tightened again. The girl's soft and boneless hands squeezed his shoulders with moderate strength. She even massaged his neck and temples in an extremely professional manner. The warm touch and the right amount of strength were very comfortable, but also very scary. Chapter 160. That's enough. Lu Tingxiao was forced to stop in order to prevent himself from losing control. Oh, Ningxi didn't think much of it, and continued to study the gun. Then she looked at Lu Tingxiao uncertainly and asked, This gun, are you really going to give it to me? Lu Tingxiao said, It's your birthday gift. This gift is really special. Ningxi gently touched the gun. Thank you. I like it. This gun was indeed safer. Plus it looked low-key. Unless it was dismantled, no one would be able to tell what kind of gun it was. It was much more convenient to use. Ningxi looked at the gun, and her eyes turned red. Lu Tingxiao, thank you. No one has ever been so nice to me. Lu Tingxiao's heart skipped a beat. Just as he was about to speak, Ningxi said emotionally, "I feel like a father." Lu Tingxiao was speechless. This evaluation was high enough, but he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's so late. You must be hungry. I'll make you supper." After Ningxi eagerly ran out, Lu Tingxiao quietly dismantled the gun. As he expected, the serial number had been erased. However, the identity of the other party had been reduced. 10 minutes later, Ningxi came in with a bowl of steaming food. "Lu Tingxiao, are the dumplings okay? I saw that there were leftovers in the fridge, so I made some for you. Leave it." "Okay." Seeing how busy Lu Tingxiao was, Ningxi felt a little guilty, so she picked up the bowl and said, "Let me feed you." Lu Tingxiao frowned. He wanted to refuse, but couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. I'll feed you. Just do what you need to do." Ningxi quickly picked up a dumpling and carefully blew on it before bringing it to his mouth. Lu Tingxiao stared at the computer screen with a solemn expression. He opened his mouth and ate the dumpling expressionlessly. "Why didn't I find it so delicious last time?" Ningxi continued to feed the dumplings one by one until the bowl was empty. "Take a break. I'm almost done." Lu Tingxiao returned Zhang Chang's computer to him and began to concentrate on his own computer. "Oh, okay." Ningxi sat on the sofa in the corner with her laptop. Because she was bored, she looked through Zhang Chang's computer to see if she could find any other clues. In the end, she actually found it. She found a folder labeled Important Secret in the D drive. After opening it, she found that there were many video files inside. Could it be that the fellow had hidden some evidence from her? Ningxi clicked on one of the videos suspiciously. As soon as she clicked on it, Ningxi felt that something was wrong, but it was too late for her to react. The next second, there was a burst of blushing and heart-pounding sounds coming from the computer, which sounded abnormally clear in the quiet study. Ningxi. Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi wanted to dig a hole and bury herself in it. Because she was too flustered, she couldn't turn off the video, even after clicking it several times. In the end, Lu Tingxiao couldn't stand it anymore. He walked over and reached out to help her turn it off. Ningxi threw the computer away and said in a complaining tone, "There's a document on his computer labeled as Important Confidential. I thought it was some evidence. Damn, I should have known. In a man's computer, this kind of suspicious folder must be this kind of thing." Looking at the girl's indignant look, Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows and sighed helplessly. "It's done. Come and have a look." He had said that it would take one night to get it done out of selfishness, hoping to spend more time with her. But now it seemed that if he continued to be tormented by her, he didn't know what would happen. Chapter 161. Hearing this, Ningxi immediately threw all the awkwardness to the back of her mind. "Done? All of it?" Lu Tingxiao nodded and motioned her to come and see for herself. At first, Ningxi was worried that she couldn't understand it, but found that Lu Tingxiao didn't let her see the complicated process, but directly showed the result to her. The IP address that sent the email was from Pearl River Imperial View, where Ning Xuelua lived. The owner of the anonymous account abroad was Cui Kaijing, Ning Xuelua's assistant. "I thought this kind of black technology only existed on TV. Especially the anonymous account, it is very secure. It is almost impossible to hack into the bank system." Ningxi was so excited that she couldn't speak for a long time. Finally, she hugged Lu Tingxiao. "Boss, you are so great." Lu Tingxiao. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao found that he had to face a problem. Now Ningxi did trust him completely, but she trusted him too much, and even forgot that he was a man. In short, she regarded him as a mentor, a helpful friend, even a father, but not a man. This was really a headache, but it was also a good sign. The time he had been waiting for was finally coming. "What are you going to do with the evidence?" Lu Tingxiao asked after adjusting his mood. "Don't rush to announce it. Let Ning Xuelua continue to make trouble. The more trouble she makes now, the harder she will be slapped in the face." "I am going to do what?" Lu Tingxiao, help me, why do I suddenly feel the ground is shaking?" As soon as the word shaking was finished, Ningxi's vision went black and she fell to the ground with a thud. "Ningxi!" Lu Tingxiao's face suddenly changed and he hurriedly helped her up. The soft body in his arms was like a hot fireball. He reached out to touch her forehead. It was really hot. He had noticed it before, but he had always thought it was a psychological effect. He didn't expect that she was sick. Lu Tingxiao carried the person in his arms and ran downstairs quickly. Uncle Yuan, get the car ready. The old butler was also surprised. What's wrong with Miss Xiaoxi? I don't know. Lu Tingxiao was so panicked that even his iceberg mask broke. I don't know. He didn't know if it was because of the residual effects of the medicine, or if it was simply a fever, or if Zhu Xiangqing had fed her some other messy things. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao was about to be drowned in self-blame. He should have taken her to the hospital for a checkup as soon as possible. But not only did he not, but he also delayed it for so long, making her so tired. So many things had happened this time. How much pressure must she be under? Forcing herself to hold on until now was probably her limit. Young master, don't be too nervous. I think Miss Xiaoxi just has a fever. Why don't we call the family doctor to come and have a look? At this moment, Lu Tingxiao could no longer hear anything. As soon as the driver drove the car over, he immediately carried her into the car. To the hospital. He then instructed the butler outside the carriage. Informed Qin Mufeng to come as well. Yes. The butler had no choice but to agree. If he was still a little uncertain before, he understood everything after seeing the young master's reaction. This girl was most likely going to be their future young mistress. Chapter 162. When the housekeeper called Qin Mufeng was in a bar, and Lu Jingli was drinking and gossiping with him. Hearing that Ningxi suddenly fainted, they immediately rushed to the hospital. In the ward on the top floor of the capital's First People's Hospital. As soon as Qin Mufeng and Lu Jingli arrived, they saw Ningxi lying on the bed with a pale face, and an 4 drip on the back of her hand. Lu Tingxiao, who was sitting in a chair beside the bed, looked solemn and gloomy. Lu Jingli and Qin Mufeng looked at each other, obviously frightened by Lu Tingxiao's expression. Just then a nurse came over with medicine. Lu Jingli hurriedly stopped her and asked quietly, "How is the patient? What's wrong? Is it serious?" "The patient has a fever. 39.6 degrees Celsius, the nurse answered. "Oh, fever. What? Fever?" Lu Jingli was confused. "Are you sure it's a fever? Just a fever?" "Yes, she's had a full body examination. There's nothing wrong. Don't worry. The gentleman in the ward has asked me many times." She didn't look impatient at all because, whether it was the man inside or the 2 at the door, they were all too handsome. She would answer even if he asked her 100 times. Lu Jingli weakly held onto the door frame and touched his beating heart. "Dear brother, are you trying to scare me to death? She just has a fever. Why do you look as if she has a terminal illness?" Qin Mufeng's face was full of helplessness. "They even called me over. Although I'm a doctor, I'm a psychiatrist." Lu Tingxiao looked up and glanced at Qin Mufeng coldly. "Now that Ningxi has replaced you, maybe I should save some money." He was implying that he was going to fire him. He paid Qin Mufeng a lot of money every year. "Ahem, don't. I have many other uses. I know a very famous nutritionist in this hospital. I'll call him over right now to help Ningxi recuperate herself." Qin Mufeng did feel a little guilty. Ever since Ningxi came, he had too much free time. Whether it was Xiaobao or Lu Tingxiao, they rarely needed his help. He even stopped his weekly psychotherapy. After Qin Mufeng left, Lu Jingli saw Lu Tingxiao looking down at his phone. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother, what are you looking at?" When did his brother become an internet addict? As a result, he was shocked when he got closer. His brother had actually copied the surveillance video into his phone. "Damn. Brother, why are you looking at this?" Little Cece's expression was so scary that I got goosebumps when I saw it. I don't know if she's acting or if it's real. Lu Jingli shuddered as he spoke. But now his brother was actually playing it on loop, and with a magical expression of "Oh, my wife is so cute." It was really hopeless. But the 2 of you are really telepathic, even thinking of the same method. It was all so simple and crude. Tsk, you're really a family. Lu Jingli sighed. Lu Tingxiao caressed the face of the girl lying on the bed. His expression was one of pride and pride. To avoid being blinded, Lu Jingli turned his head away. You must have figured out the identity of the other party, right? Are you going to publish it on the internet to clear little Cece's name? Shall I do it now? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.